You may not know it, but the orange is Florida's official fruit. The orange became the top banana by way of official proclamation. The mango, peach, plum, persimmon, or the exotic Meme sapote did not make the cut, but are just a few of the many kinds of fruit which can be grown by Florida homeowners. Whether it be temperate fruits in the north, such as peaches, or tropical or subtropical fruits in the south, such as papaya, growing fruit outside your door not only provides fresh fruit at the peak of its maturity, but also is an interesting and rewarding hobby. For good fruit production, special attention has to be given to the selection of varieties and species. Plants which are not adapted to your specific local conditions will, as a rule, fail to produce fruit, no matter how much care and attention they receive. In the following video, experts from the University of Florida's Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences, IFAS, will pass along some ideas on what to plant, depending on where you live and where in your yard to plant. Let's start with one of summer's best tasting treats, blueberries. Berries from the native North American plant can be eaten fresh or used in pies, muffins, and pancakes. Blueberries also make a great topping for your favorite breakfast cereal. Blueberries make a good dooryard fruit because they require little space in which to grow, and that's not all.
Blueberries are a good choice for the Florida garden because there are very few pests and diseases that affect them. Two types of blueberries grow well in Florida. Rabbit-eye blueberries grow well in northern Florida and the Panhandle area. Southern highbush blueberries grow well in central peninsular Florida and south. Varieties of rabbit-eye that do well in Florida include Climax, Brightwell, and Powder Blue. Southern highbush varieties that grow well in Florida include Jewel, Emerald, Windsor, and Star. Whichever type of variety you decide to grow, you will need at least two of those planted in close proximity to each other for good cross-pollination, and even having three or more would be better. The bumblebee is the main pollinator of the blueberry. Anything you can do in your home garden to encourage a high population of bumblebees will increase your fruit set. Southern highbush blueberries ripen fruit in April and May in Florida, and rabbit-eye blueberries ripen fruit from the end of May through July. So depending on when you want ripe fruit in your garden, you can grow one or the other type, provided you're in an area of the state that's suitable for that type. Site selection is very important for the blueberry. Blueberries prefer an acidic soil, they like high organic matter content, and they need a well-drained soil. Many Florida soils have low organic matter content, and this can be adjusted prior to planting by incorporating peat moss or pine bark or some other organic matter into the soil before you plant the plants. Also, a good heavy mulch of pine bark, pine straw, or oak leaves can also add to the organic matter of the soil over time and increase the growth of your blueberry plants. Blueberries require sunlight to be fruitful. They need at least a half a day of full sun if you're going to get good fruit production from your blueberry plants. Fertilize your blueberry plants frequently during the growing season. About every 3 to 4 weeks is ideal. Fertilization should begin usually in March when growth begins and continue through September in North Florida and possibly mid-October in South Florida, at which point you should stop fertilizing to allow growth to stop so the plants can harden off for winter so they won't be damaged by cold temperatures during the winter time.
When it comes to fertilization, blueberries respond best to frequent, light applications. Blueberries can be damaged or even killed by too much fertilizer. Fertilizer rates can be increased as you gain experience with your soil type and the kinds of fertilizer you are using.
Fertilizer types that work well for blueberries are going to be acid-forming fertilizers. These are usually camellia and azalea fertilizers that you're likely to find in the home garden centers, or sometimes you may find what's called a blueberry fertilizer, which would also work well.
For the health conscious, keep in mind blueberries are high in antioxidants and low in calories and sodium. They contain no cholesterol and are a good source of fiber. If you want to try your hand at another native North American plant, you might consider grapes. Muscadine grapes are a local homegrown favorite throughout the southeastern United States.
When eaten fresh, they have a delightful and unique flavor. They are also excellent for making jams, jellies, wines, and juices. If you've hiked in the woods much in Florida, you're bound to have come upon muscadine grapevines growing wild in the woods. You may, however, have seen vines that had no fruit on them. This is because muscadines in the wild are either male or female plants. Only the female plants will produce the grapes, and most of the plants that grow wild in the woods are male plants.
The grapes are different from those in the supermarket.
The fruit tend to be borne on smaller clusters, and they're picked as individual fruit rather than as a cluster. Muscadine grapes come in a variety of sizes, shapes, and color, all the way from dark purple to what we call bronze. The fruit has a very tough skin, and the skin is not edible. Muscadine grapes are eaten by squeezing the grape so that the pulp comes out from inside the skin. This variety is called Southern Home. It's actually a cross between the table grape and the muscadine. As you can see, the leaf shape is different than from a typical muscadine. It has almost a maple-shaped look to it. The fruit tend to be more in clusters than with typical muscadines. The fruit are not large, but they're very high quality, and it's a high-yielding plant in Florida. This variety is Darlene. It is a bronze variety of muscadine, which makes very large fruit. It's a pistillate variety, or a variety that makes only female flowers. So if you grow Darlene, you'll need another variety nearby that makes male flowers for good cross-pollination. The fruit are exceptionally large and sweet and have excellent flavor. Muscadines need plenty of room to grow and develop. They also need a support system called a trellis. This is an example of a fairly simple trellis. We have a wire about 5 to 6 feet off the ground, supported by posts that are spaced about 18 to 20 feet apart. When we set a young plant in the ground, we tie a string to the wire and let it come down to meet the plant. This way we can encourage the young vine to grow straight up the string. That way it will have a relatively straight trunk when it's an older vine. Grapevines naturally tend to grow up the string because of their tendrils and their habit of growth. However, sometimes it's necessary to get the vine off on the right start to tie it loosely to the string with some twist ties. But we have to be careful not to tie it very tightly, just very loosely, so we don't girdle the plant itself. Here we have a young muscadine plant that has actually grown up the string to the wire. What we'd like to do at this point, when it gets to the wire, is prune the top out of it a couple of inches below the wire.
Pruning the top of the plant will stimulate lateral growth from the buds just below.
Healthy muscadine vines are extremely vigorous and require annual pruning. Here is an unpruned vine. You can see the tremendous amount of growth that it put on the previous year. Each one of these small vines will continue to grow next year and has the potential to produce more berries. This may sound good, but in fact, the plant will produce way more fruit than it can possibly size up to commercial size if left unpruned. So what we would like to do each winter, during the late winter or possibly even the early spring after the coldest weather has passed, we'd like to thin out this growth, leaving only a few of what we call short fruiting spurs along this main axis, which is called the cordon. So as you see here, I pruned this back to where I have these 3 or 4 inch fruiting spurs spaced out about every 4 to 6 inches or so. These so-called fruiting spurs will develop new shoots this spring, and on those new shoots, the berries will develop. It's important to keep the area around the base of the vines free from weeds. Usually this is accomplished by simply hoeing or hand pulling the weeds.
Weeds have a negative impact on the growth of the grapevine because they compete for water and nutrients.
Irrigation is absolutely essential for newly planted muscadines. Florida's soils tend to be sandy and light and tend not to hold water for long periods of time. As the plants become more established and the root systems become deeper and more able to absorb water from the soil, the most important period for irrigation is generally considered to be between May and June.
The harvest period for most muscadine fruits begins in mid to late summer and can continue on to late September, depending on the cultivars. A fruit fast becoming a favorite with dooryard growers is the peach. With their fine flavor and many uses, it's no wonder the peach has long been considered queen of the fruits.
There have been developed low-chill selections from the University of Florida breeding program that are suitable for the Central and South Florida area. The varieties you want to be looking for are those known as Florida Prince, Tropic Beauty, Tropic Snow, Florida Glow, and UF Sun. These peaches are excellent. They have high sugar content and strong aromatic aroma. They have many uses, not only for eating fresh, but you can make preserves out of them. You can slice them and freeze them and use them all during the year. At a later time, you can put them over ice cream. You can make cobblers with them. You can make pies with them.
All those desserts will come at a price. Taking care of a peach tree is labor-intensive. Proper pruning is important to maintain vigor, health, and the production of high-quality fruit. Pruning also accomplishes several objectives for the home fruit grower.
First, it's an opportunity to remove diseased or damaged wood. Second, it's an opportunity to adjust the fruit load. You can see there's a lot of flowers on this tree, and by pruning we can reduce the number of flowers present, and the remaining flowers will produce higher quality fruit. So it's a fruit thinning process, and also pruning maintains the vigor of the tree. We prune fruit trees annually, and plants respond to pruning by growing vegetatively, so this encourages new growth where we prune.
When pruning, it's important to have the proper tools. Most of your pruning, however, can be done with a pair of hand snips.
These are designed for cutting small diameter wood like we see here, and this is where a lot of your pruning will be done to adjust your crop load and to direct the growth of the tree where you want it to go, which in this case is out away from the middle. So we can accomplish most of our pruning with the hand snips. For slightly larger diameter wood like we have here, or here, or here, we can use a pair of loppers. These are good heavy-duty steel-handled loppers, good for this kind of operation. And if we get into making extremely large cuts, like for instance, if we need to remove a damaged, diseased scaffold limb like here or here, we would need to use a pruning saw, something like this, to make the large diameter cuts.
Peaches, along with nectarines and plums, are pruned to what's called the open center pruning system.
Is because it allows good light penetration into the middle of the tree canopy and good sun exposure up the canopy wall. Basically what we'll have during the growing season is a canopy about 1 foot to 1.5 foot thick all the way around the tree in the shape of a bowl. We get good high quality fruit production on the interior parts of the tree as well as on the exterior parts of the tree.
A dooryard fruit similar to the peach tree is the plum. The fertilization and nutritional requirements are about the same as is the disease control.
Plums are very good to eat and have very good flavor. The tree aesthetically is beautiful when it blooms. It becomes a solid white, almost like a snow-covered tree. You need to have varieties that are adapted for the area, and the varieties that are suitable and do well here in Central and South Florida are a couple of old varieties that have been around for a long time, Gulf Ruby and Gulf Gold. Then there are some newer varieties that have been released known as Gulf Beauty, Gulf Blaze, and one called Gulf Rose. As with peaches, plums will not produce any fruit in the year that you plant it, assuming that you plant it early in the season so that it has a full growing season. It should have some fruit the second year, and the third year it should have an abundant crop.
Another dooryard fruit that you might consider growing is the nectarine.
Nectarines basically are a peach without fuzz. So everything that applies to the peaches applies to the nectarines. The only thing that you need to know is what variety, and the best variety for the low chill southern part of the state of Florida is one called Sunbest nectarine.
Peach and nectarine trees are independent, bearing fruit without receiving pollen from a neighboring tree. So plant one or plant an orchard. Plums, on the other hand, do require cross-pollination, so plant at least 2 plum trees of different varieties. A widely adapted dooryard fruit in Florida is the persimmon. Grown in the state for many years, the oriental persimmon grows well in many soil types and climatic conditions, although it grows best in Florida's northern sections. A native of China, the oriental persimmon is a close relative to the native persimmon, but is much larger.
The tree is quite an attractive tree during most of the year. As you approach the end of the harvest season, the leaves begin to fall, but during the majority of the growing season it's quite an attractive tree with large, shiny or lush green leaves, very attractive foliage, very nice shape. It's also good from the homeowner's standpoint in that a single tree can produce fruit. You do not have to have cross-pollination from multiple varieties, and the tree is not that large that it wouldn't fit in most landscape situations. They respond well to full sun. They probably can tolerate some shade. As a general rule, they should get at least half a day of full sun exposure. Persimmons don't require a whole lot of pruning, but some pruning and shaping is desirable because it aids in light penetration into the canopy, helps if you're going to be applying sprays or for pesticides, helps the canopy air out after a rainfall event. Just generally is conducive to good fruit production throughout the canopy and better disease control. Oriental persimmons set fruit parthenocarpically. That means they set fruit without seed, without the benefit of seed, and so they are more susceptible than most fruit crops to various fruit drops during the growing season. A couple of weeks after bloom, you'll have your first wave of fruit dropping. This shouldn't alarm the home gardener. Basically, that's the tree trying to self-regulate its fruit load.
Many growers believe fruit drop can be minimized through proper fertilization.
In concert with this, it's a good idea to provide a constant source of irrigation for the tree. Here you can see a drip emitter for this tree in this commercial orchard. At home, various means could be used to accomplish the same goal. The idea being to provide the tree with water and fertilizer in small doses.
Remember, no matter what dooryard fruit tree you decide to plant, you have to dig a hole. This particular hole is being dug for a peach tree.
We want to make sure that the hole that we dig is larger than the container that it's now growing in. And we want to make sure that we have water available to add to the planting of the tree. You need to first remove the pot and expose the roots that are growing in there. And you need to remove some of the soil that's kind of got it pot bound so that the roots will then develop out into the surrounding soil. That's very important to get these roots exposed and loose, particularly on the bottom and around the side. Then when you set the tree in, you want to make sure the soil line that it's originally growing at is the same as the soil line of where you're planting it. And I'll throw in just a little bit of soil around here to hold it in place and make sure that it's straight.
After adding more water and soil, it's important to work out any air pockets. If the pockets aren't worked out, they will inhibit root development.
If you plant the tree dry, you obviously will get air pockets, and you may or may not get those air pockets out when you subsequently water. So the best growth of this tree will take off the fastest if you kind of have it mudded in.
After the peach tree is planted, you will need to do some pruning so it will develop into a bowl shape.
The bowl shape is important because we need to get sunlight down in the center of the tree. If you get a tree that's just one straight central leader growing up, you'll need to cut that off and force it to branch down below until you can form a bowl. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prune this thing back.
All this pruning may look pretty drastic, but it's important for sunlight to penetrate down into the center of the tree. Keep in mind, we planted a peach tree. Not all fruit trees are created equal, so pruning will vary from tree to tree. If you are not sure what pruning method you should use, contact your local IFAS Extension office for advice. If you want to plant another tree in the same yard, you need to give the newly planted tree room to spread. And it will spread, 6 to 8 feet in each direction. So make sure you step off at least 15 feet and keep a like distance from the house or existing buildings. In South Florida, the climate offers the opportunity to successfully produce a surprising variety of tropical and subtropical backyard fruits. Many have odd shapes and strange names like Jaboticaba. But for every odd shape or strange-sounding name, there are just as many that are old favorites in tropical South Florida.
Very popular fruit-bearing plants in this area include avocado, mango, mamey sapote. All three of those can get to be very large trees if people do not prune them regularly. And what do I mean by that? Maybe once a year or once every other year, or at most once every 3 years. So they can get to be very large, so you don't want to plant them close to other trees or to structures. You don't want them hanging over the house or your garage.
The number of fruit trees available to the South Florida homeowner is as diverse as the population.
Carambola, lychee, longan, sugar apple, passion fruit, and then some others that aren't grown as widely include sapodilla, canistel. So there's quite a few. There's a large diversity.
The avocado is perhaps one of the best known subtropical fruits. They are easy to grow and can produce large quantities of fruit that have something extra.
It's one of the few fruits that actually has some protein content to it. It's also very low in fat, at least the varieties that are grown in Florida. You can have fruit with having a few varieties. You can have fruit for many months of the year. And it's has beautiful leaves, and as I mentioned before, very nutritious.
Although native to Southeast Asia and India, the mango is hardly a newcomer to Florida. Mango trees have been planted and enjoyed for over 100 years in the state. The trees are medium to large with a wide variety of cultivars. If you're looking for something more unique in your home and landscape than the common mango, you might consider a native of Mexico and the Central American lowlands.
Mamey sapote is unique in that it has a brown, scruffy surfaced fruit. But inside that brown peel is a salmon orange or magenta orange colored flesh. Very soft, very sweet, excellent, excellent flavor. Used typically to make milkshakes, but also with ice creams, and has a wonderful, wonderful flavor.
The best known of the tropical fruits are bananas. A true tropical favorite, bananas come in many different cultivars, but be warned, bananas are not cold hardy. The banana and another subtropical favorite, the papaya, have one thing in common.
They are large herbaceous plants. In other words, they're large herbs, you could call them. Grow very, very rapidly. Both should be grown in full sun. They both should be fertilized with small amounts of fertilizer regularly, and they should be watered regularly, and they will produce constantly. They can produce fruit year-round.
Another home garden favorite in South Florida is the sugar apple. The reason for its popularity is its high-quality fruit and good adaptation to the area. The next fruit you might consider as your dooryard choice comes with a hefty weight of up to 4 pounds. Packed into those 4 pounds is a good source of calcium, phosphorus, vitamin C, and iron. We're talking about the Atemoya.
Atemoya and sugar apple can be moderately sized to small trees. And so they are ideal for smaller landscapes. They are easily pruned and kept smaller, so you could probably plant them 15 to 20 feet away from other trees and structures, and they would do fine. Sugar apple and Atemoya are both what we call dessert fruits, in the sense that they're very sweet. They're an excellent fruit to eat out of hand, or sometimes they're mixed in desserts with ice cream or puddings or things like that.
Once you're at the garden center and about to buy the tree that's just right for you, it's important you look for good leaf color.
But even more importantly, you want to be sure that the tree is not what we call pot bound. And what do I mean by pot bound? Pot bound means that the tree has been growing in the container, and it may have been growing in the container too long. And what happens is the root system will then become crammed and restricted in that container. And what happens is if you buy a tree and plant a tree that has a restricted root system, it's been in the pot too long, it may not grow very well once planted in the ground. Once you plant the tree, you need to water it in very, very well, and you need to water it probably at least for the first week or so every day. And then we also recommend that most of your planting be done really during the rainy season. So you're looking at May, June, July, and August are probably the best months to plant, because you get natural rainfall and the temperatures are warm and the plant will begin to grow very rapidly and establish. I would not recommend fertilizing it upon planting, but wait until you begin to see the trees grow a little bit, and then go ahead and use very small amounts. I'm talking about a handful sprinkled around the diameter of the root system. Just use a light dose and do that maybe every other month the first year, and that will get the tree established rapidly.
Hopefully, we've been able to provide just a few of the many kinds of fruit trees which can be grown outside your back door. Remember, no matter what other varieties or species of dooryard fruit you choose, there are some general considerations for planting. They include adequate space for growth, maximum exposure to sunlight, good air circulation, plus adequate irrigation and drainage. Be sure to prepare the site well before planting. Remove weeds, rake the area, and you'll eliminate headaches later on. Climate, however, is perhaps the single most important factor which determines where fruit crops can be grown. Winters may be too cold for some, too short for others, and still other fruit varieties may suffer from summer heat and humidity. Keeping that in mind, species and varieties of fruits should be chosen on the basis of historical weather patterns where you live. If you have any doubt the fruit tree you're about to purchase is right for your climatic conditions, or if you've already purchased a fruit tree and need advice on how best to care for it, call your local University of Florida IFAS Extension Office for advice.